The Galactic Council had warned them about humans. Every species in the known universe had heard the tales how they came from a death world called Earth, how they bonded with anything that moved, how their capacity for both violence and compassion defied all logical parameters. But Caitlin Rodriguez hadn't come to the Thornback Nebula to prove anyone right or wrong. She'd come to catalog flora, not to make history. The research station on Verith 7 was supposed to be routine. 3 months of soil samples, atmospheric readings, and endless reports. Alejandro Chen, her research partner, had joked that the most exciting thing they'd encounter would be a particularly colorful fungus. They were both wrong. That had happened on day 40-7. Katelyn was collecting samples near the crystalline forests when she heard a sound that translated across species barriers. A cry, not of aggression, but of hunger and fear. She followed the noise through the sharp-edged foliage, ignoring Alejandro's voice crackling through her comm unit, asking where she'd gone. The creature was small, no bigger than a human child, covered in midnight blue scales that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. It huddled beneath the carcass of what could only be its parent, a massive Verith serpent, one of the apex predators of this world. The adult had been killed by something even larger, its body torn open, and the hatchling was trapped, too weak to move, too young to hunt. Caitlin, what are you? Alejandro's voice cut off as he rounded the crystal formation and saw what she was looking at. Step away now, that's a serpent hatchling. The pack will come back. It's dying, Caitlin said simply. She was already moving forward. It's a predator. When it grows, it'll be 15 meters long and capable of crushing a shuttle. Right now, it's a baby. She knelt beside the hatchling, and it hissed weakly, barely able to raise its head. Its eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle fixed on her with something that looked like recognition, like hope. Alejandro knew that look in Caitlin's eyes. He'd seen it when she'd nursed injured birds as a child, when she'd smuggled her neighbor's abused dog across state lines to safety, when she'd spent her savings on veterinary bills for strays. He sighed and activated his scanner. It's malnourished, dehydrated, maybe 6 hours from death. He paused. The nutrient paste in our supplies might work, but Caitlin, the pack, then we need to work fast. They did. Alejandro mixed the nutrient paste while Caitlin carefully extracted the hatchling from beneath its mother's body. The creature didn't fight. It trembled in her arms, scales clicking softly like wind chimes. When she offered it food, it ate desperately, its forked tongue lapping at the paste on her gloved fingers. That's when the others arrived. 7 adult Verith serpents emerged from the crystalline forest, each one a nightmare of muscle, fang, and predatory grace. Their scales rippled with warning patterns, reds and oranges that meant danger in any language. They surrounded the humans in a loose circle, heads raised. Testing the air with their tongues, Alejandro's hand moved toward his plasma pistol. Don't, Caitlin said quietly. Don't move at all. The largest serpent, Sapak Alpha, presumably slithered forward. It was massive, old, with scars crisscrossing its scales like a map of battles won. It could have struck them down in seconds. Instead, it stopped 3 meters away, its triple eyes fixed not on the humans, but on the hatchling in Caitlin's arms. The hatchling chirped, a soft sound, almost musical. Caitlin did something that Alejandro would later describe as either the bravest or most foolish act he'd ever witnessed. She stood, cradling the hatchling, and walked toward the alpha. She knelt and gently placed the small creature on the ground between herself and the massive predator. Your baby, she said, though she knew it couldn't understand her words. I was just helping. For a long moment, nothing happened. The alpha's head swayed, its sensors processing information that didn't fit any evolutionary model it knew. Prey didn't nurture predator young. Prey didn't kneel before apex hunters and offer gifts. Prey ran, or fought, or died, but this creature had done none of those things. The alpha lowered its massive head, until it was level with Caitlin's face. She could feel its breath, hot and smelling of metal and ozone. 1 bite. That's all it would take. Instead, the serpent's tongue flicked out, gently touching her forehead, a gesture Alejandro's scanner would later identify as a sign of respect among Verith pack members. Then it picked up the hatchling in its jaws, impossibly gentle, and backed away. 1 by 1, the other serpents followed, their warning colors fading to blues and greens. Curious. The alpha paused at the edge of the clearing, looking back at Caitlin with its 3 ancient eyes. And then they were gone. Alejandro released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. That shouldn't have happened. Verith serpents don't have pack adoption protocols. They don't have gratitude. They don't. They're mothers, Caitlin said softly. Fathers, parents, that's universal. The story spread. not through official channels at first, but through the network of researchers, traders, and explorers who shared tales across the stars. The human who fed the hatchling, the human who knelt before the apex predator, the human who made the serpents bow. 6 months later, when a diplomatic team arrived on Verith 7 to negotiate mining rights, they found something unprecedented. The Verith serpent packs, previously hostile to all outsiders, had left a clear path to the richest deposits, and at the entrance to their territory, they'd arranged crystals in a pattern that the linguists eventually translated. The ones who feed the lost may pass. Alejandro framed a photo in the research station, Caitlin kneeling in the crystalline forest, a tiny blue hatchling in her arms, surrounded by creatures that should have killed her but chose instead to remember. Humans, he muttered, shaking his head with a smile. You people will adopt anything. From her desk across the room, Caitlin grinned. Wait until you hear my plan for those bioluminescent spider things in Sector 7. Absolutely not. But they both knew he'd help her anyway, because that's what humans did. They saw something vulnerable, something afraid, something alone, and they couldn't help but reach out their hands and say, not anymore. And sometimes, the universe reached back.